Greetings. I welcome you all to Invitation to Sociology, a web lecture series from Alumni Association of the Department of Studies in Sociology, ADSM, University of Mysore, Mysore. I am Shanti. I teach sociology and I am a researcher. I am a member of ADSM. This is first in the lecture series on Max Weber. This lecture briefly introduces you to the life and career background to Max Weber and social action. Weber is one of the most important contributions to sociology. I extensively draw for this lecture from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy titled Max Weber by Sung-Ho Kim, Main Currents in Sociological Thought Volume 2 by Raymond Aron, Masters of Sociological Thought by Louis Ecozer, Sociology, Themes and Perspectives by M. Herlambos with R.M. Held, Causal Explanation of Social Action, the contribution of Max Weber, and of Critical Realm to a Generative View of Causal Explanation in Social Science by Mats Ekström, which is available on JSTOR, The Foundations of Social Theory by Max Weber, translated version of course. Maximilian Karl Emil Weber, familiar to all of us as Max Weber, was a German sociologist, philosopher, jurist, and political economist. He was one of the foremost social theorists of the 20th century. Max Weber is known as the principal architect of modern social science, along with Karl Marx and Emile Durkheim. His methodological writings were instrumental in establishing the self-identity of modern social science as a distinct field of inquiry. Weber's works can be classified into four categories. They are studies in methodology, that is criticism and philosophy, which is including within this heading, studies concerned essentially with the social sciences, history, and sociology. Second is strictly historical works, which includes a study of the relation of production in agriculture of ancient world among many others. Studies in sociology of religion. And fourthly, economy and society, which is acclaimed as Weber's masterwork. Max Weber was born on April 21st, 1864 in Prussian city of Erfurt. Weber was brought up in a prosperous, cosmopolitan and highly cultivated family milieu that was politically, socially and culturally well connected in Germany. He was the oldest of the 7 children to Max Weber Sr. and Helena Fallenstein. Max Weber's parents represented two often conflicting poles of identity. They are his father's worldly statesmanship and ascetic scholarship of his mother. This led to intense inner conflict in Weber's life. Weber was educated mainly at the universities of Heidelberg and Berlin. Weber was trained in law, eventually writing his doctoral thesis on Roman law and agrarian history under the guidance of August Meitzen, a prominent political economist of the time. After an initial engagement with legal practice and public service, Weber received an important research commission from the leading social science association under Gustav Schemler's leadership and produced the East Albion report on the displacement of the German agrarian workers in East Prussia by Polish migrant laborers. He received high acclaim for this work. This early success led to Weber's first university appointment at Freiburg in 1894, to be followed by a prestigious professorship in political economy at Heidelberg 2 years later. Weber's wife, Marianne, was an intellectual in her own right. She was a women's rights activist. Weber was also active in public life as he continued to play an important role as a young intellectual in the Union and maintained a close association with the liberal social reform movement of German evangelists. It was during this time that he first established a solid reputation as a brilliant political economist and an outspoken public intellectual. All these fruitful years came to an abrupt halt in 1897 when Weber collapsed with a nervous breakdown shortly after his father's sudden death. His routine as a teacher and scholar was interrupted so badly that he eventually withdrew from regular teaching duties in 1903, to which he returned only in 1919. It is during this period that he put in an enormous effort to come back, and the result was that he published methodological essays as well as The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism between 1904 and 5. He became the editor of the Archives for Social Science and Social Welfare, which was an academic journal for the social sciences in Germany. And under his direction, the journal emerged as a leading journal for social science publication of the day. In 1909, he co-founded the German Sociological Association, becoming its first treasurer. During this period of his life, he worked intensely in two areas: the comparative sociology of world religions and economy and society, which was published posthumously. Along with these two works, he also produced major methodological essays. These works became hallmark of Weber's intellect. His works gave him the reputation as one of the founding fathers of modern social science. In 1919, he briefly taught at the universities of Vienna on general economic history, which was an outcome of his experience, in Munich, where he gave the much lauded lectures on science as a vocation and politics as a vocation. During his recovery period, he compiled his writings on religion in the form of massive 3 volumes, collected essays on the sociology of religion. All these invigorated scholarly activities ended abruptly in 1920, when he succumbed to the Spanish flu and died suddenly of pneumonia in Munich. Max Weber was 56 years old when he died. How much of caliber and achievement within such short span of time. Weber was influenced by Darwin, Marx, and Nietzsche. His early training in law had exposed him to the sharp divide between the reigning Leibnizian legal positivism and the historical jurisprudence. Now let us try to understand social action, one of Weber's major contributions in understanding human behavior. To Max Weber, sociology is a comprehensive science of action, social action. His primary focus was on the subjective meanings that human actors attach to their actions in their mutual orientation with specific socio-historical contexts. He argued that all human action is directed by meanings. Thus, in order to understand and explain action, the meaning and motives which lie behind it must be understood. Weber began with the idea of social action to make sociology a scientific inquiry. Thus, the idea of action is central to Max Weber's sociology. For Weber, the combined qualities of action and meaning What are the central facts for sociology's scientific analysis? Weber defined sociology as the interpretative understanding of social action in order thereby to arrive at causal explanation of its causes and effects. Action in Weber's analysis is all human behavior to which an actor attaches subjective meaning. Weber was particularly interested in how social action is often conceptualized by social actors in terms of means, ends, chains. For instance, a large bureaucratic organization will organize the activity of social individuals by assigning each worker a particular role in a hierarchy. The responsibilities associated with this role are rules or norms that serve as means to the ends served by the bureaucracy. These norms serve to make organized social action possible. That is, they routinize and formalize social interaction among individuals who, for whatever reasons it might be, that they are committed to serve in the organization. To him, there are essential three key terms in understanding social action. They are Dathan, meaning to interpret, to grasp the significance or the subjective meaning. Warstein, meaning to comprehend, to organize the subjective meaning of human actions into concepts. Ekleram, meaning to explain causally or reveal the constants of human behavior. Max Weber notes that sociology studies different aspects of human behavior, particularly the meaning, purposes, and values of human behavior. He very emphatically, repeatedly states that this is not to be mistaken as the space of psychology. He observes that social action is that action of an individual which is influenced by the action and behavior of other individuals, and by which it is modified and its direction is determined. Weber writes, a correct causal interpretation of concrete course of action is arrived at when the overt action and the motives have both been correctly understood, and at the same time their relation has become meaningfully comprehensible. The significant characteristics of Weber's ideas are as follows. That is, let us see what characteristics are there for social action as per Weberian ideology. Social action may be influenced by an action of past, present, or future. So, social action is a result or a modification of some action of other person or persons. Social action presupposes the existence of other individual and some action by that person. Necessity of subjective meaning. It is oriented in its course. Weberian classification of types of action brings us to 4 categories. That is, rational purposeful action with reference to goals, value rational action with reference to values, affective action with reference to the emotions of the persons, traditional actions with reference to established customs. Now let us visit each one of them and try to understand what he means by them. Affective or emotional action. The action Weber calls affective is the action that is dictated immediately by the state of mind. This stems from an individual's emotional state at a particular given time. Loss of temper, which results in verbal abuse or physical violence. The slap the parent gives their children because of their tantrums. The punch administered during a football game by a player who loses control of himself or herself. All these are examples of affective action. In all these examples, the action is defined by the emotional reaction of an actor placed in a given set of circumstances. Now, what is traditional action? It is based on established custom. All the actions that are based on established customs or traditional action according to Weber. Here an individual acts in a certain way because of ingrained habit, because things have always been done that way. The person has no real awareness of why he or she is doing something. Their action is simply second nature to them. These actions are directed by customs, by beliefs, and they become habitual. To act according to tradition, the actor need not imagine a goal, or he or she simply obeys reflexes that have become entrenched by condition. One can think of n number of examples for this kind of action in our day-to-day life. We never ask questions when we need to do certain set of customary based behaviors. Now coming to rational action in relation to goal, Raymond Aron notes that rational action as proposed by Max Weber in relation to goal corresponds roughly to Pareto's logical action. He tries to explain the idea of rational action with a couple of examples used by Weber. The action of the engineer who builds a bridge, the speculator at a stock exchange who is trying to make money, the general who wants to win the war. In all these cases, the rational action is distinguished by the fact that the actor conceives their goals clearly and combines means with a view to attaining that is reaching the goal. As Herlenbosch notes, rational action involves a clear awareness of a goal. It is in these examples that we have visited above, the goals are very clearly defined. Rational action also involves a systematic assessment of the various means of attaining a given goal or a chosen goal. Now, rational action in relation to value. Rational action in relation to value that Weber discusses is related to the value-driven action which has a specific target to reach and plan of action in place to reach that goal. Raymond Aron explains this idea of Weber through an example. At the time of a ship sinking, the action of the captain, who even though could have escaped first, stays and goes down with the ship. The action here is rational. He explains not because it seeks to attain a definite or external goal, but because to abandon the sinking ship would be regarded as dishonorable. Thus, the person is acting rationally in accepting all the risks, not to obtain an external result, but to maintain and remain faithful to his or her own idea of honor. It is very seldom that an action, especially a social action, takes only one or the other of these several forms. Equally, the list which has been given is, of course, not intended in any way as an exhaustive classification of the different forms which actions may take. Rather, Weber says the types mentioned are pure abstractions conceived for sociological purposes to which real action may approximate to a greater or lesser degree, or out of which, and even more frequent cases, it is compounded. It could be multiple ones. So the debate relating to social action has a very long history. It has been argued, elaborated, refined, revisited time and again. Now this raises the question, why are they of such great importance? We need to understand Weber's engagement with social action to answer this question. To Weber, sociology is a comprehensive science of social action. Aaron elaborates Weber's social action thus: the classification of action when applied to social situations will be in its abstract form. Sociology is a comprehensive science of action. Comprehension, he notes, suggests an understanding of the meaning people give to their behavior. Weber's aim is to understand the meaning each individual gives to his or her own conduct. By doing so, it helps in understanding the subjective meaning of the actions, thus helps one classify the conduct into specific types of actions. The classification of types of action to a certain extent governs the Weberian interpretation of contemporary era. According to Weber, the prime characteristic of the world we live in is rationalization. Rationalization is expressed by extending the sphere of rational action to goals. Economic enterprise is rational. So is the control of the state by bureaucracy. The classification of action according to Weber is correlated with the relations of solidarity or independence between science and politics. According to Weber, interpretative sociology considers the individuals and their action as the basic unit, as its atom. The individual is the upper unit and the sole carrier of meaningful conduct. Concepts like state, association, feudalism, etc. are certain categories of human interaction. Especially his typology of social action has encountered severe criticisms. Talcott Parsons criticizes Weber for stressing too much on the element of voluntary subjective meaning of the actor. For Parsons, the action of an actor is involuntary. It is behavior directed by the meanings attached to the actors, to things and people. Schulz criticizes Weber for not providing a satisfactory account of meaningful action, since if meaning is too much taken away from the actor, that is divorced from the actor, it becomes an objective category imposed by sociologists rather than the actual subjective meaning that the actor gives to the actions. Now, despite these shortcomings cited amongst many other, Weber's theory of social action has inspired sociologists of subsequent generations. By way of conclusion, we can say that a social relationship may be said to exist when several people reciprocally adjust their behavior to each other with respect to the meaning which they give to it, and when this reciprocal adjustment determines the form which it takes. A social relationship, therefore, is completely and exclusively characterized by the possibilities of a social actions occurring in a manner which is specifiable in terms of its meaning, irrespective of what these possibilities may depend upon. Weber notes that it is the task of sociology to reduce these concepts to understandable action, that is without exception to the actions of participating individual human beings. So this is all about the social action by Weber in this video. In the next video, I will be speaking on Weber's one of the most celebrated work, Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism. Thank you for listening to me. Namaskara.